Hello out there. This is Pamela Fagan Hutchins, and you have found Wine, Women, and Writing, the videocast and podcast where I talk with other writers about their awesome books. I like to focus in on the female characters, what makes them authentic and complex, whether that's something that's inspired by real life or out of the fertile imagination of a novelist. And I like to do it with a little irreverence, sometimes some oversharing if we're lucky, and something good in my coffee cup, which today I'm feeling healthy. It's green tea and apple cider vinegar. Yay me. And today also, I should tell you that in my ever-changing where am I coming from, I'm in my mother's living room. How cool is that? My parents are in New Hampshire today, and so I moved over to their house. We've got a house in Texas, a house in Wyoming, an apartment in Dallas, and we're living with my parents on their farm. I don't even know how to keep up with myself, other than to go to my website, which I encourage you to do, PamelaFaganHutchins.com. You can find my USA Today bestselling and Silver Falchion Best Mystery winning What Doesn't Kill You series out there. I had a new release last week. It's a guide. I think of it as a bit of fun. It's a guide to the series. You can pick that up. But even more important for our purposes today, you can see who I've got coming up next on the show. I like it if you get the books, you read ahead, and then we can book club together on the show and really be in tune when we're talking about the books. You can also look at past episodes there as well. So as far as that schedule goes, today, I'm really excited about today because I don't know if you follow the reviews that I leave for the authors, but I don't leave a lot of 5 stars. I did leave a 5-star review for our guest today. So that's like, a solar eclipse, which is it's a very fitting example given what we're going to talk about. But the book is A Bend in the Stars. It's the debut novel from my guest, Rachel Barenbaum. Rachel, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Pamela. Thanks so much for having me.
You are very welcome. And Rachel and I have a great connection, but I find that when we're going from country to country, a little bit of delay. She's only a bit up north though. Where are you today?
Today I'm in Montreal, just in Canada.
Just in Canada. It still feels pretty exotic when we're sweating in Texas. So
far from Texas, that's for sure.
Very far from Texas. And so with respect to Bend in the Stars, I should tell you guys, first of all, because I've been talking to her for a few minutes before the show, and I can tell you that she is modest and isn't going to tell you this herself, but it has great buzz. It's a New York Times summer reading list pick. She's been the Barnes and Noble Great New Writer, and the book itself as the best book of the year so far by BNN, a Globe and Mail summer best read. I mean, it's really, really cool. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you. And you too. You are also the best.
Thank you. It's fun, isn't it? Or that's my next question. As a debut novelist, is this what you thought it would be? This whole, your novel comes out and how it feels and, looking yourself in the mirror and going, I wrote that book.
I mean, I'll tell you what the dream come true is, having complete strangers read my book. Right? Because before you're published, you might have friends you can drag to read it or family, but now complete strangers, people I've never met before, have read the book and talked to me about it. And that's pretty amazing.
It's cool when all of a sudden your characters are real. They've been real to you, but they're real out there in the world to other people.
Yes. Yes, I love it. So there's, it's no secret that there's a love triangle in Bend in the Stars. And so I've had a lot of readers will come up to me, and they'll say are they team Yuri or are they team Sasha? And there's a lot of emotion around those two men. And I love that.
When you set out to write this book, did you originally envision the romance as such a central part of it? Or what was the book originally to you as you sat down at your computer or your whatever, however you write?
Yeah. So I guess I'll back up a little bit to say, where did I originally get the idea?
Yes.
So in 2014, I was reading a copy of Scientific American, and there was an article in there that said 100 years ago this month, Einstein was just on the verge of proving relativity. He had equations, he had the idea, but he needed actual evidence. And that evidence would only be a photograph that he could take at a total solar eclipse, because that's where you can actually see light bending around, gravity bending around the sun. So he got a whole team together. He sent them up, hoping to get them to Russia to take a picture, but World War I broke out. So Einstein did not get his picture. But Einstein also wasn't working in a vacuum. There were lots of other scientists, physicists, mathematicians trying to work on this question of relativity, trying to prove it, disprove it, show he was a quack, show he was a genius. And I thought, what if one of them beat Einstein, right? What if someone actually sitting in Russia made it and got there first? And so that was the genesis for the book, right? This is that someone would beat Einstein. And I really love books written by women with strong female protagonists. I love it. And I can't help myself. I just fall for those books every time. And so I really wanted to make a woman the main scientist, the main protagonist, but it just quite. And I guess the reason was because, I have family that came from Russia, and by the way, they fled pogroms and anti-Semitism. So Russia was always a bad word in my family.
Yeah.
And, being true to the times, women who were working were midwives, or they were taking care of, sort of on the health side. And there were a couple of women who were surgeons. They were educated outside of Russia, but, hadn't been actually educated in Russia itself. And I thought, so what if I really want a woman as the main protagonist, then she has to be a doctor. She has to be a surgeon. What if I make her the very first surgeon educated in Russia and promoted in Russia? So that's where I came from. Yeah. So Miri is the main.
Miri's fantastic. As I was reading the book, which was several months ago. So my brain creaking back into gear here. But as I was reading the book and thinking about the strength that it took for Miri to do what she did in those times, it made me feel like I don't have so much to gripe about. This is easy compared to that. Not to minimize at all what people go through today, because many people struggle quite mightily. But Miri went through some struggles, but had a wonderful role model in her babushka, her matchmaking babushka, and who steals a lot of the scenes. So you came up with the idea for the book. So a lot of times people will tell me, my characters have driven this the whole way. I thought of the character and then the book came. But for you, really, it was this beautiful, wonderful, exciting idea. And then finding out whether or not you could, or how you could put a female character into that mix. So
yes,
it's pretty interesting. And then the brother of the two he's weaker. He's weaker than she is. He's brilliant, but he is not a strong individual. She's really his caretaker. Tell us a little bit about Vanya.
Yeah, so Vanya is the scientist, right? The physicist. He's the professor. He's the one racing Einstein. And I think that there's a tendency to equate brilliance with strength. And, I tend to question that, to say you can be brilliant, but are you actually strong, right? Are you the person that the family that people can lean on, is that the person who's going to take you out of this, disaster, this problem, or, even through a happy life? I don't know.
Right.
And in particular, I think it's easy to look back and say, Einstein was a genius. He must have always been a genius. But geniuses make lots of mistakes, right? I mean, we all do. That's how you learn. And so there's weakness. To actually be a genius, you have to fail and fail and fail until you succeed. And so I wanted to show that, right? There's a weakness there. And I also wanted to show that I think women are often the people that lead the family, that are the strength, that are the core. And so it just felt very natural. I didn't have to push hard, to make Miri the strength, and to make Vanya the one who was maybe wavering, making mistakes, falling apart. And I wanted people to question this of, okay, we say Einstein is a genius, or we say Vanya is a genius, but does that make them the strength of the book or the time?
Or a good person, or someone that's thinking about anything besides their singular goal.
Exactly.
He put everyone in a whole lot of unnecessary. I'm saying unnecessary because, of course, he would never look at it that way. It was his quest. It was his dream. It was science as beauty and art and an end in of itself, the truth that you must seek. So to him, he wasn't doing anything wrong, but he was putting people at risk. He wasn't putting his family first. And instead that fell to Mary. So
Yeah, that's exactly right. I love that you saw that, because I think a lot of people, it's harder to see that sometimes. There's a lot of action. There's a lot to sweep you up in the book. So I thank you for that close reading. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Oh, I really, really enjoyed the book. And as I was reading, and you talk about loving strong female protagonists, that's not even a word, protagonists, which I do. I love that. And in some ways, and this is a compliment, I had a woman I really like, Kate Quinn, on the show earlier this year, and she's written The Huntress and the Alice Network, and then a host. Yeah, it made me think in some ways of what she's doing with putting a strong female protagonist back in a historical period and looking for, with historical accuracy, some inspiring and small segment of the female population that she could delve into and tell a story from, like a female surgeon, or in her case, like a Russian pilot, a Russian female pilot. So it was really interesting to have read your books so close together, because I think I read them almost back to back last spring when your publicist sent it to you.
And what I love about her books, which I tried very hard to give to Miri too, was this sense that even if you are the strong woman, right, and you're the leader and you are the strength, you still have weakness, and you still have moments. It's not like every single decision is made and that's right and you know where you're going, right? There are always these questions. Do I go left? Do I go right? Okay, I went left, but should I have gone right? Right? I mean, I think that's very real. And I think she does a great job at it. And I hope that that's what you saw in Miri too.
I did. And so that kind of brings us back to the love triangle, really, and the decisions she's trying to make, especially within the society as it was at that place and at that time, where she's made a commitment. She's made a commitment to someone, and she is falling desperately head over heels in love. And that's some tough choices right there. And no matter what, you're going to have readers that don't agree. So here we go back to the passionate interest in the love triangle that was not really the core of the book, but what is life without love? So what is a story without it? So do you find that people are more Team Yuri or Team Sasha?
It's a real mix. I think probably more Team Sasha, but it's a mix. But one of the reasons that I put that in there too, the love triangle, is because Miri's life, especially if you're a woman in 1914, right? And you sort of have a prescribed path that you will grow up, you will get married, you will have children, and your life will be your house and your husband. And, I think it takes a lot of courage, and there's this chance that to actually stop your life and say, no, this isn't what I want, the direction that I want, takes a lot of courage. And I saw a parallel in that. Bear with me for a minute, because I realize this might sound crazy, but in my head, this made sense, where Einstein really was the first to stand up and say, I think Newton is wrong. And at the time when that happened, again, he was on this prescribed path of, going through physics as they were supposed to be, as they were understood. And then he stood up and said, no, I'm going to take you the other way. And there were a lot of naysayers, a lot of people who thought he was a quack and he was crazy. But I love that he had the courage to do that. And if you were back there at the time, there were so many people that thought he was crazy. He was ostracized, right? He couldn't get a job. I mean, he wasn't very responsible either, and there were other things going on. But
and that hair.
But he didn't get crazy yet, right? He was still this put together, button down patent officer. And I think that Miri, in a lot of ways, I hope that she reflected that ability to stand up and change and say, wait a minute, I'm supposed to go one way, but what if I don't? What if I go the other way? And that's the love triangle.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it did. It showed tremendous courage. And there were some scenes where she really had to buck convention and expectation and what she was raised and trained to do. And that takes tremendous strength. It is interesting what you say about the quack, the idea of anybody that bucks what is popularly believed is a quack. The world is flat, the world is round, relativity versus conventional physics or any host of issues today. But I think that makes for good fiction. It makes for a really difficult life if you're the one living it. I'm sure that at times Einstein was not having a great time to be hostage to his passion about what he believed to be the truth, and at the same time having to live in a world where he was ostracized. But it sure makes for good fiction. And I think that with Vanya, we saw that as well, that he was brilliant, that he had this boss that was trying to steal his ideas, but that at the same time we had people thinking he was a little off. And he was in some ways.
Yeah, he was. And I think it's always easy to look back, what is it called, with the rose glasses, and make, so like you think, oh, it wasn't as bad as it was. But when you are in the moment and you are bucking that trend or standing up, it is hard and it is heart-wrenching. And like you were saying, that is life. And that's what we as novelists, as writers, I think are attracted to and we love, is that moment of, right? Which way are they going and how?
Authenticity is not just getting what's beautiful right, it's getting what's ugly and what's hard right, and the complexity of decisions and everything else. And to me, books just aren't interesting unless they reflect all those dimensions. So so you've been doing a lot of book events. I'm stalking you on your website this morning. You've been doing a lot of book events. You've been doing a lot of book clubs. A lot of book clubs have been picking up the book. Are you still touring, doing book events, or is it slowing down now?
I am thrilled to say it's picking up. So I actually, yay. So it's more like, when you're, I don't know if you remember, but when you're a first time debut author, and you say, my book is here, people are, don't hear you. Like, who is this?
Yeah.
Why should I read this? And so slowly the dream is that it will pick up momentum. And so I think I'm seeing some of that, and it's amazing. Even today, I got 2 more requests, and, again, from people I didn't know who want, who love the book, and they want to talk about being team Yuri, team Sasha, or Einstein, or Russia. And it's amazing. It's amazing. And sorry, what were you going to ask?
I was going to say, are you doing book club appearances, or, what kinds of things are you doing that you're enjoying?
I love all of it. Anytime someone reads my book and wants to talk about it, I'm in. But I would say some of the more interesting things that are starting to come up now are from more academic institutions and circles.
Oh, cool.
And so, and so that's really fun, because the history, I really worked hard to build a world that was authentic, that was historically accurate, although the characters are all invented, right? So that any one of them could actually be, if you could go back in time, you would actually be in 1914 Russia, what it felt like, what it smelled like, how hungry you were, how cold you were. It was awful. And I tried to build that. And I think that I'm seeing a lot of in academic institutes are interested in that aspect. And,
and we did talk about that, but that was big for me too with this book. To me, good setting is like a character. It becomes a force of its own. It's exerting force and control over events and characters. And I totally felt it. I was transported. I'm glad you're getting some recognition for that and a chance to talk about it, because it was really fantastic. On your website, by the way, guys, if your book club does a Bend in the Stars, send Rachel a picture through Instagram. There's information on our website about how to do this, and she'll share it as well, or send her a picture and she'll share it. But it looked like there was a ton of them. And and I'm sure that will continue picking up, because it's a really interesting book to talk about. And it's something that's makes you think, all of the elements and the what ifs in it are super intriguing and great for book club discussion.
Yeah.
Pick this book for you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I love it. Thank you. Actually, going back to the setting, one of the critiques that I've gotten a couple of times now has been, people will say, did you exaggerate, or I guess a question, did you exaggerate life in Russia? Was it really that bad? Like one person said, it seems farcical. And what I want to, stress is it really was that bad. I mean, I didn't invent any of that. And I guess we've come that far, which is maybe good. I don't know, but I think it's important not to forget, right, that life was that bad and it was that cold and you were that hungry. And, yeah.
Can you imagine? And it does seem farcical to us now, because look at all the lights on in this house behind me and the air conditioner running. And, if I'm cold, I have a heater. And if I need clothes, I go buy them. And if I need food, it can be delivered to my door. Things have become so easy. Could you imagine this, being thrown back into that time period and not being able to get yourself out? Which kind of brings me to, I noticed the title of your next book when I was out trolling you, stalking you this morning on your website, which was The History of Time Travel. So yeah. Without sacrificing the wonderful discussion of Ben in the Stars, is it actually about time travel? What's the deal with this book? But you had me at the title.
Thank you. Oh my God, thank you. Yes, it is actually about time travel. So it is, again, 4 generations of a family, of the women in a family from Russia to America. Although in History of Time Travel, each generation, each woman builds a piece of the time machine that they use to save the family.
Oh, that's very cool. And is it again rooted in the science, if you will, or being fascinated by what might make something like that possible?
Yes, thank you. So that was like my dream question, by the way, and I didn't answer it. So thank you. Thank you.
You set me up for it. I just fell naturally into your trap.
Perfect. So there are really 2 parts to relativity that grabbed me. And the first is this idea that gravity bends light, which is explored in A Bend in the Stars. Mm-hmm. And the second is that time is relative. So that if you could stand on a planet on the event horizon, near the event horizon of a black hole, let's say you took a 10-minute trip there, and then you beamed yourself back to Earth, you might have experienced 10 minutes on that planet. But because of the force of gravity, if by the time you get back to Earth, even if it's instantaneous travel, you teleport whenever back, Earth, 100 years might have passed on Earth. And so I thought, what if that was time travel, right? What if you're talking about using the force of gravity, right? The second part of relativity as a way to explore time travel. And so that's what I dig into. And of course, the time machine is not real. And I make that part up, but that is the science that I explore.
Okay, so before we start wrapping it up, then this is the $1 million question. I looked at your bio and I don't see a science degree. I don't see a history in science in your background. And yet, obviously, you're sitting around reading Scientific American. You're pretty interested in this stuff. Was this a took a right turn instead of a left at some point in your career, and this secret passion is novelist / physics, professor, or, what's going on here, Rachel?
Yeah. So I would say that I studied philosophy as an undergrad, philosophy and literature, and physics. These ideas really start in philosophy, right? So the first day I showed up at Harvard and I sat down at my first philosophy class, the professor asked, "What is time?" And, I thought I was so smart because I was like, oh, seconds, minutes, hours, right? But no, those are just conventions that we've made up that we rely on as, a way to make schedules, clocks, so that we can, create plane times and train times and, right, say we're going to have this meeting at 11 o'clock. But this idea of what is time is what drove Einstein. He wasn't a great mathematician. And so it's that philosophy part that really grabs me and that I have always loved. So I can't explain the numbers or the equations of relativity, but I can talk about the ideas.
And you can research the rest enough to kind of like slot it in. Yeah. Well, you fooled me. I mean, when I was reading your bio, that's the first thing I thought of was, where did this ability to talk about really complex scientific topics come from, and an interest that would drive a whole book. Getting back to that original, so it wasn't the characters that drove you, it was the plot, and you found the characters that worked. It's often, it's on its head for what the answer I usually get is. So it's super interesting. Now, it's super interesting, but we've also gotten to kind of the end of our time period. So we'll just have to have you back for a history of time travel to talk about it more. Except for one last question, which is, what haven't we talked about that you wanted to talk about, Rachel? And then we'll talk about that for a minute. Anything we missed?
Oh my God, I've had such a blast talking to you. I don't have anything else to add. I mean, except for things, I think we could chat for another hour, but nothing pressing. So
Yes, exactly. And for those of you that watch this show, I talk to my guests before the show and I talk to them after. So you miss out on all the good stuff, the outtakes, if you will, author outtakes. I should start recording those and have a best of the outtakes.
you have some good ones.
Yeah, that'd be so fun. This has been, here we go, a copyrighted production solely owned by Authors on the Air Global Radio Network, with many thanks to the lovely and visionary Pam Stack, who is our producer. And next week, I think I've given myself the week off. I'm not even going to think about that. Check out it on the website and see if I'm lying to you or not. Go see what book I have next week, because I've totally blanked. But you can make up for my blank spot by picking up A Bend in the Stars, catching up with what we read and talked about this week. Highly recommend it. Totally 5 stars for me. And other than that, Rachel, thank you for joining me from Montreal. It was really fun. I'm looking forward to your next.
The pleasure was all mine. Thank you so much, Pamela.
And for those of you out there, have a great week, read a great book, and put something fun in your cup too. Bye, guys.